Because we're all so damn concerned about election meddling, we take our advice from John Oliver, a British guy. I think John Oliver might actually be a citizen, though, so I'm not entirely sure. And I'm only somewhat being facetious. I don't care where you're from. You're allowed to have an opinion on whether or not we should impeach the president. But I do find it interesting that we see all of these late-night hosts pushing for this rhetoric, calling for the impeachment of the president, and I ask why. Because there's a potential for obstruction of justice into an investigation that basically exonerated the president. There was no evidence for collusion. So here we have something interesting. A criminal investigation, a legally done special counsel and all that, didn't find enough evidence for any kind of prosecution. And now what? Now they want to impeach him over the potential for obstruction. Listen, I understand the left's argument when they say that Mueller didn't file obstruction charges because he can't file charges against the president. But he didn't say Trump did anything wrong. He simply said, if we could exonerate him, we would have. No, that's not what the law does. The law looks for evidence, and if you have enough, then you make your way up to the point of beyond a reasonable doubt we convict somebody. But let's see what Mr. John Oliver has to say. But before we do, two things. The second story, CNN pundit wonders if news orgs would push impeachment to boost ratings. I wonder why John Oliver is calling for impeachment. Ha 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 ha. But go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There's a PayPal option, a crypto option, a physical address. But of course, just like, comment, share, and subscribe to help with the engagement. From the Daily Beast, John Oliver makes the case for impeaching Trump. Nobody is above the law. Last week, Tonight host explained why the Democrats should start an impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Yes, because they want President Pence. But let's read on. On Sunday night, John Oliver dedicated the main story of Last Week Tonight, which has published overt fake news on numerous occasions, to laying out the case for impeaching President Trump. Though impeachment isn't popular with the public, a majority of Americans currently do not support... Wait, what? Oh, okay. A majority of Americans currently do not support impeachment proceedings. I'm one of them, as is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she's pointed out time and time again. Oliver argued that most of the public aren't aware of the contents of the Mueller report. I read it. I've been covering this stuff, and I think you are wasting your time. You are spinning your wheels for a fringe minority of resistance crazy people who just don't like the president, Orange Man bad, and you're not talking about what we need to deal with. I made a video about African migrants in record numbers coming to the southern border. That is a crisis. The Wall Street Journal thought so, the New York Times thought so, and here's John Oliver twiddling his thumbs to preach to the resistance. Why? Well, as CNN wonders, perhaps it will increase our ratings. I wouldn't be surprised. What a waste of all of our time. Look, man, if there was something done that was just overt in terms of obstruction, like we knew Trump did something, whoa, of course no one's above the law. But what we're looking at right now is the nonsense from the resistance rating, vultures that are pushing this narrative simply because Orange Man Bad sells t-shirts. It sells advertisements. My word. Okay, so he says, it is true that many people don't fully understand what impeachment involves, so we thought tonight might be a good time to discuss what it is, why it may be warranted, and what the risks might be in carrying it out. I'll tell you what the risks are. A bunch of disaffected liberals saying, you never offered us anything. You never gave me a reason to vote for you. Can I say that? I've said it a lot. I'd love to vote for some of these Democrats. In fact, I likely would vote for someone like Yang. I think Yang's better and better every time I watch him, and he's a good dude. So I like Yang. Not all the Democrats, but many of them. In Congress, in the Senate, and the presidential candidates. What are you offering? Elizabeth Warren wants to break up big tech. I really, really like that, but I really, really don't like Elizabeth Warren. So you got me at an impasse. Andrew Yang, he wants to impose a value-added tax on these big tech companies so that portions of the revenue they generate can be distributed as a universal basic income program that would displace our standard welfare packages, which in essence could actually reduce our welfare spending. It's a complicated system. But what I like about Yang is mostly that he's thought these things out. He's pro-nuclear energy, for instance. He's pro-free speech. I think he's a good guy. He's willing to sit down with Ben Shapiro, go on Fox News, Dave Rubin. That to me says a lot. So I have a tremendous respect for him. Not perfect, though. So I definitely want to hear legitimate arguments, and I want to see these debates. But what about the rest of them? What is John Oliver doing? Going on his TV and rallying his base. Listen, you know what John Oliver said? Nobody is above the law. We should impeach Trump. He might as well have just gone on TV and said Orange Man bad for 40 minutes straight. because that's all he's really saying. You're not telling me anything, dude. You're not telling me why I should or shouldn't vote for any of these people. They just want to get rid of Trump and make Pence the president, and I don't know why. I don't know why. But impeachment would never even happen. That's the other thing. Trump will never be impeached. Look, I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that Trump will not be impeached. I mean, they don't have the Senate, right? So what are they going to do? It just seems nonsensical. I think the real goal with impeachment is to try and just unearth as much bad press as possible. But guess what? Didn't work in 2016, won't work now. I don't even want to read this nonsense from John Oliver. He says, while impeachment in no way guarantees a president's removal from office, with no past presidents ever being removed due to impeachment, Oliver claimed that Trump had committed high crimes and misdemeanors. Did he? A treasonable offense. Seriously? He pointed to the 10 instances of possible obstruction of justice outlined in the Mueller report. Oh my God. So here's what you want to say. No, we're not going to begin impeachment proceedings. Congress is now going to investigate possible obstruction. And of course, the Democrats will fall on the Democrat side and Republicans on the Republican side. Waste of everyone's time. He says, including Trump's repeated orders to then White House counsel Don McGahn to fire Robert Mueller, the person investigating him, which they don't mention was because of fear of a conflict of interest, which never actually moved beyond that point. Come on. If that weren't enough, the report outlined how Trump then pressured McGahn to put out a statement denying that he tried to remove Mueller and wanted McGahn to write a letter to that effect for their records. Listen, the problem is firing Mueller obstruction? There's not even a definitive yes or no in that regard. Trump ultimately, well, I'll just put it this way, it didn't happen. Okay? So you want to call it obstruction because Trump was like, I want this to happen. They said no. It's like, okay. Nothing happened. Man, I get really annoyed when instead of arguing the veracity of Trump's policy positions, we're arguing whether or not a hypothetical may have been obstruction. We're arguing whether or not Trump saying a sentence of like, I want that guy fired. I'm not going to fire him. Oh, that's what we're arguing about. Do you want to have a conversation about the migrant crisis? I'd love to do that. You want to have a conversation about the economy, manufacturing? Do you want to have an argument about Yang's idea of automation and UBI versus Trump's idea of, I guess, more protectionism and border restrictions and tariffs and things like that? Both have their merits and their pitfalls, some more than others, and I think it warrants a good debate. Instead, John Oliver goes on TV and says, Orange man bad. Orange man so bad, impeach Orange man. I get it. He says, when it comes to impeachment, there aren't just two outcomes. Even if Trump is not removed, which he probably won't be, the process could shine a light on the contents of the Mueller report. And that's the point. They know they won't remove him. John Oliver said as much. They just want bad press. Why? Well, in this story from Fox News, CNN pundit wonders if news orgs would push impeachment to boost their ratings. And there it is. News outlets often bill themselves as gatekeepers of truth, with slogans such as facts first and Washington Post's democracy dies in darkness. In that case, democracy died a long time ago. But CNN pundit Brian Stelter suggested on Sunday that money, clicks, and ratings could influence their coverage too. Spot on, Brian. We've had our disagreements, but he's right here. Stelter raised the question during a conversation on his show Reliable Sources about whether or not the press wants to see President Trump impeached. Washington Post columnist Margaret Sullivan, a guest on the show, said impeachment is in the air, but denied that the media had much to do with it. BS. John Oliver has nothing to gain politically from going on a show and ranting and raving about what the Democrats should or shouldn't do, other than ratings. Pandering. That's why I like Bill Maher. Bill Maher goes on his show and he says a lot of things that are offensive and calls out, the SJWs, as it were. But look at MSNBC. We know it's about the ratings. We know it's about the clicks. We know it's about the money because Rachel Maddow went on for years about Russian conspiracies and the power being shut off in Fargo. And it's mind-numbing, insane conspiracy. They call it the Trump bump, and we all know it. And Brian Stelter pulls the mask down and says, but what about our money, clicks, and ratings? You know the media, and I don't mean this to be a dick. I respect him for bringing this up. This is an excellent point. Sullivan responded that news executives may want impeachment to occur because it would be good for business. That may be going on in the background or in corporate offices, but I don't think that journalists ever really, even really think that way. I cannot. There's two people. There are two kinds of people in media. 99% of people fall into one of these two categories. Overt activists who lie, cheat, and steal for political ends, and the journalists, the actual ones, who provide them safe harbor and turn their heads and close their eyes and refuse to call them out. I know many of these people. I work for some of these companies. I know the people at these big organizations. I am a member of the Online News Association, and I spoke at one of their conferences. So I know a lot of these people. I know Brian Stelter. Is Brian going to call out the activists who are lying? No. He brings him on the air, Kevin Roose from the New York Times, to talk about his anecdote about, I kid you not, the New York Times ran a story where Kevin Roose watched one YouTube video and then presented a conspiracy theory. This is news. Providing safe harbor to these activists, and I would call Kevin an activist because I worked with him at Fusion. Fusion, which is now called Splinter News, is a woke progressive digital media outlet. I worked with him there. So don't tell me he's not an activist. And Brian Stelter gives him safe harbor. The New York Times gives them safe harbor. And this is what we end up with. Activists who want money, sociopaths who want fame, and the other people who just provided all safe harbor. Both of these people saying, I'm not going to call out our people because, I like money. No. That's where we are today. Journalism is in the trash hole. So I'll leave it there. We final thought. I don't think any of them care about impeachment. They're riling up Democrats to make them lose their minds because they want to sell, laundry detergent or something. I got one more story coming up for you in a few minutes. Stick around. I will see you there.